Okay, let's dive right in. We're going to break down exactly how Next.js handles rendering, which, is a huge part of why it's become such a popular framework.
So, for the longest time, web developers have been stuck with this really annoying choice, right? You either build something super fast, like a static site, but it gets outdated pretty quick, or you build a dynamic app that's always fresh, but, that initial load time can be a real killer.
But what if you didn't have to choose? What if you could have both speed and freshness? Well, that's exactly the problem Next.js is designed to solve, and it does it with some really clever rendering strategies.
Okay, to really get how Next.js pulls this off, we need to understand two key ideas, two pillars. The first one is all about a simple question. Where does your code actually run?
Now, this is pretty cool. Out of the box, when you create a component in the Next.js app router, it's a server component. This is the default, and that means you get fantastic performance from the get-go, without even trying.
But what about when you need interactivity? Like a button click or some state management? It's super simple. You just add one little line at the top of your file, use client, and boom, that component is now a client component.
So the big idea here is to think small. You want to push those client components as far down your component tree as possible. Make them the leaves. So maybe your whole page layout is a speedy server component, but just that one little interactive search bar inside it, that's your client component. It's all about isolating the interactivity. So if there's one thing to take away from this part, it's this. Build most of your app with server components. Keep things fast. Then just sprinkle in client components like salt, only where you absolutely need that interactive browser-based magic.
All right, that was pillar number one. Now let's talk about the second pillar, which is all about timing. It's about when your pages actually get built.
The default way of doing things is called static rendering. You can think of it just like a newspaper that's already been printed. All the content is there, the layout is done, it's just sitting there ready to be delivered instantly. All the hard work happened way ahead of time.
And the opposite of that? Dynamic rendering. This is more like a live news ticker on a 24-hour news channel. It's always up to the second with the latest info. But the trade-off is that it has to be created from scratch, on the spot, for every single person who looks at it.
Okay, so we have server versus client, and we have static versus dynamic. Now, here comes the aha moment. The way these two ideas connect is, well, it's surprisingly simple, and it all boils down to a function you probably use every single day.
All right, let's say you're building a blog. You need to get your posts, so you write some code. A standard fetch call. Nothing special here, just plain old JavaScript that you've written 1,000 times.
So here's the question. You're fetching data from an API. That's got to make the page dynamic, right? I mean, it has to be built on request. That just makes sense.
Well, surprise. This is where the magic of Next.js comes in. By default, it automatically takes the result of that fetch and caches it. It basically extends the fetch you already know. So it sees that request, grabs the data, and then pre-builds the page at build time, which means your page is static, even with data fetching.
So what if you don't want that? What if you need fresh data every time? Well, it's incredibly easy. To opt out of that caching and force the page to be dynamic, you just add one little option to your fetch call. That's it. This one option tells Next.js, hey, forget the cache. I want you to go get this data fresh on every single request.
And this right here is so powerful. It's brilliant, really. You are literally controlling whether a page is static or dynamic right at the spot where you're fetching your data. It's all connected and super intuitive.
Okay, so we've got fully static and fully dynamic. But what about the middle ground? What if you want a page that's mostly static and super fast, but you also needed to, update itself with fresh data every once in a while?
Well, for that, there's something called incremental static revalidation, or ISR for short. And again, it's just another option you add to your fetch. Instead of telling it not to store, you tell it how often to revalidate by giving it a time in seconds.
So here's how that plays out. Let's say you set it to 10 seconds. The first person who visits your site gets that fast, cache-static page. Perfect. Now the 10-second timer starts. The next person to visit after those 10 seconds are up, they also get the fast cache page, but their visit triggers a rebuild in the background, and then everyone who comes after that gets the brand new updated version. It is the absolute best of both worlds.
And you can set this to whatever you want. Need your blog to check for new posts once a day? No problem. Just set revalidate to 86,400.
Easy.
All right, let's wrap this all up. We've covered a lot. So what are the main things you should remember from this whole toolkit?
The key thing is that Next.js isn't locking you into one way of doing things. It's giving you this amazing, flexible toolkit. You get to decide the perfect rendering strategy for every single part of your app, and you control it all with these simple, clear options right where it makes the most sense.
So the power is really back in your hands as the developer. You now have everything you need to build websites and applications that are both blazingly fast and always fresh.